what happens to a lot of startups, you get pulled into a billion different directions as the company starts to scale up. For a while, it felt like we were trying to skate on gravel. And now it's starting to feel like we're skating on ice. And what that's going to manifest as for our customers is a Scribenote that if you thought the past year was impressive, stick around for the next couple months because it's going to get pretty crazy.
Hey everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I was joined once again by Dr. Katie Gallagher and Ryan Gallagher, two of the brilliant minds behind the scribe software Scribenote. Some of you may remember I initially met with Ryan and Katie maybe like a year and a half ago, and at the time of that episode, Scribenote was still kind of emerging. It was still very new. The medical record function, where the software could record a conversation between veterinary staff and a pet owner and produce a full soap note at the end, had just been released. And for me at that point, I just started using Scribenote. I was like blown away at the amount of not just time, but mental energy it saved me, being able to walk in an exam room, hit record, and have notes that were complete and accurate at the end. Here we are again, however long later, and I had another opportunity to sit down with Ryan and Katie, and I love that they are still the same team I met with originally. Personally, if you can't tell, I think a lot of the Scribenote team. I think they have a goal of improving quality of life for veterinary professionals and getting us home on time. And no matter how much advancement, improvement, innovation has happened with the company, and as we'll talk about here, there has been quite a lot, they are still so focused on that original goal of getting us all home on time. Just a really great company. Of course, we talk a lot about Scribenote in particular in this episode, but if you're new to the idea of using a scribe software in practice, one, let me tell you, I highly recommend it. Like I said before, it saves me a ton of time, but I also love not having to expend what limited mental energy I have these days trying to synthesize notes out of thin air at the end of an appointment. But aside from that, if you're not using scribe software, you might have questions about privacy concerns or how to implement this in your practice in a way that's, of course, legal, but also makes your clients feel comfortable and serves the purpose that you need. Or maybe you want to know what kind of features are even out there and how you can use them in practice and how that'll fit with your model. We cover a lot of that in this episode, of course, when it comes to Scribenote, but just scribe software in general. Like I said, I absolutely love this team. I was so happy to get the opportunity to sit down with them again. Let me tell you a little more about them and let's get into it. Described as a human golden retriever, Ryan likes to help people with technology. Ryan is an engineer by training, a founder by nature, and a lover of working hard for an important mission. Ryan started Scribenote to help his sister Katie get home on time from the clinic. He's so proud that he's finally achieved his goal and won't stop until all veterinarians who struggle with time-consuming medical records can make it home in time for dinner. And since graduating from the Ontario Veterinary College in 2016, Dr. Katie Gallagher has been practicing small animal medicine. Katie is a key member of the Scribenote team while still working as a general practice veterinarian. Katie hopes that with Scribenote, all her peers and fellow veterinarians will find a better work-life balance. Those are the shortest bios ever, considering the major impact these two are having on the veterinary industry. I think that really speaks to their humility and focus on betterment of the industry that they both bring to their work. Let's go ahead and jump in.
Nutrition is the cornerstone of our patients' health and happiness. The veterinary healthcare team should be the ultimate source for top-notch pet nutrition info. When clients see how the right diet helps their pets stay healthy and happy, they visit us more often. Remember, good nutrition is essential. It's smart business and great medicine. Enroll in the NAVC Pet Nutrition Coach certification today on vetfolio.com.
Well, I am super excited to be joined once again by Ryan and Katie Gallagher, some of the brilliant minds behind Scribenote, which I've been using really since our first conversation, and I love it. It was game changing for me from the beginning, and it's just kind of continued to grow and become more and more amazing. So Ryan and Katie, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Dr. Cassie. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you guys again, and there have been so many exciting developments. So let's start to jump into those because I'm really excited to talk about this, as you can tell. Scribenote has just kind of exploded over the last year. So tell us some of what's gone on within the company over the last year.
There's quite a bit to cover, so I will try to be as brief as possible here. But I think in a sentence, the past year for Scribenote has been the year of growing up into a increasingly mature organization. So I think the last time we were on the podcast, we maybe had 7 full-timers. I'm pretty sure our headquarters was still my parents' basement. We were, extremely resource constrained. We had raised a very small amount of money. And so, we were just doing everything maximally scrappy. I mean, we're still scrappy, but things have really changed over the past year. So where do I start? I think on the product side, as maybe you've just alluded to, we're really leaps and bounds ahead of where we were this time last year across all aspects of the product. Our AI infrastructure, our technical infrastructure, so everything feels snappy. Our products feel more seamless, increasingly, becoming more so. Feature list, I think Katie will probably want to talk a lot about because things have become quite exciting, and we're actually just kind of scratching the surface of where our product's going, and that is mostly because Scribenote has had a lot of changes from the organization side too. So our team has grown quite a bit. We're now a team of 20. We are now very well capitalized. We just raised our seed round at the beginning of the summer. And so we went from being a company that grew to thousands of veterinarians using the product on just about $200,000 raised, which is quite rare for startups. Most startups go and raise a ton of money first and then build the product. We did the opposite, as you know from our last conversation. Scribenote was an idea that grew out of me going to shadow Katie, and this was in December 2019. And just working on it as a side project. And then myself, one of our other brilliant co-founders, Alina, working on this full time in our parents' basements, getting our first handful of customers and scaling up pretty much, in the absence of a lot of capital, just continuing to build and build and build. And so at the start of the summer, raising our seed round, quite an inflection point for Scribenote because now we have a lot more resources at our disposal. We have a increasingly, incredible team full of some of the best engineers, customer support people, designers around, especially in our area. We have a cool office now. It's pretty sweet. Maybe the future one of these we could record here.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and we're just getting started, and so I think it's been a big year, and I'm happy to dive into any one of those updates. But man, am I excited for what's to come!
And you can hear it, and that's why you guys are so fun to talk to because you can just hear the excitement and to think of what you have been able to accomplish on, like you said, a relatively modest starting point. And what you were able to accomplish from there, and now having so much more in terms of resources to continue to grow. Like I'm super excited to see where it's going to continue to go in the future for everyone. So Katie, let me hand it over to you real quick. Talking about some of these features that have rolled out. I know I've gotten to play with them and experience them, and I think they're fantastic. So tell us more about them.
Okay, so there are so many that have been kind of launched throughout the year, and then a whole bunch of new and improved things that I'd also like to give you guys a sneak peek into. We have a feature called Draggy Droppy, which does exactly what it sounds like it does. Basically, is an easy way to get your medical record in from like once you've kind of finished it up into your practice management software. And there's going to be some updates to that with even less kind of user interaction. So like basically like a one button kind of sync to practice management software option, which is really, really fast, reduces, the time it takes for people that are using systems that have like multiple fields to get their Scribenote record into their software. So that's amazing. I'm super pumped about that. We have a dental record feature, which I find so useful because when your hands are in a mouth and covered in blood and whatever else, probing the teeth is really not so easy to write down tooth findings specifically. And then if you're having a technician do it, it's also hard for them to kind of follow what you're saying. And so this dental record feature, basically you verbalize everything you're finding on the tooth, and then you just at the end you'll get a full tooth by tooth record, and that also generates a dental chart. So you're able to see, similar to what I'm sure lots of people already sent home, like a dental chart with like which teeth were extracted, which teeth were missing, which teeth were abnormal. But that's all generated by your discussion with Scribenote while you're doing dental probing. So there's also a bunch of updates to that we're coming out with. That's like kind of version one. And version two will be much more robust. But that's a super useful feature for a lot of our vets that are using Scribenote. Client summaries, which was one of the ones that I was really interlaced with working on, is basically so, those appointments where you have somebody like the neighbor or the grandma or the husband who have, not really a super intimate knowledge of what's going on. And I mean, I guess it depends on, who brought the pet in, but they want you to relay everything that you said during the appointment to their spouse or to whoever owns the dog, which can get very cumbersome. And, sometimes that game of telephone is really challenging in those situations. So basically, what at the bottom of your medical record, once you've kind of looked through it and put any finishing touches on it, you can press simple client summary, and it will make a very client facing, succinct, informative, layman's terms summary for the client, kind of like what we found, what we're going to do. And there's an easy PDF export where you can just print it off and hand it to them or email it to them. So that has been so incredibly helpful when you've got those medicine cases where, you can't necessarily even kind of summarize it nicely for the client because it's been so complicated. And at the end, they seem like, their brain is just not really picked it all up. It has been like amazing and people really, really appreciate it. I've used them a number of times. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with that feature. And I guess you can kind of hear the theme, but like every feature that we've got, this is like version one, right? So basically everything that we will do, we're obviously going to expand upon that, but we like to get that kind of initial feature out, get, feedback from our customers, and then improve it again, right? So that's just what we always do at Scribenote. And so, every time I list a feature, we're already working on improving it to the next step. So that's really like quite a thing to say, right? Just because we've already had so many launch. Our AI writing assistant actually just launched at the a couple weeks ago, I think. And basically what you can do through each section while you're editing your note is you can change to bullet points, you can show only abnormal findings, you can change to like medical terms or like abbreviations, you can change the language. There's 5 different languages you can change. And then the next version of that will be like intuitively, your Scribenote will know kind of how you like that, or you can kind of set it so that it always does the same thing. So kind of more personalization in the medical record. So that's all of the things that have come out this year. And then there's some new stuff, multi-pet appointments. So those are really challenging just because we all know that when we're seeing 2 pets, like, the history gets combined and we start talking about one pet and the owner jumps to the other pet. And in the past, you've had to be very clear about, which pet that was for, and sometimes Scribenote would only pick up one, and so we've really been working on the multi-pet so that we've got like a pretty knowledgeable for both pets from the same medical record. So that is one thing that's coming out soon. Large animal records that would basically be for anybody who's in equine, mixed animal, on farm. So we're working on that one. Ultrasound, so anybody who does scans of the abdomen, that will be out soon. And then all the improvements I've already talked about, plus today, actually, in the last couple days, the last couple weeks, actually, we've been working on improvements to our core soap. So, improvements in accuracy, reduced amount of like it assuming the owner said this or that, and really just like improvements in the AI. And I'm super pumped. I've been looking at them today, and I am really excited to see people's feedback on that.
Very cool, very cool. And I love that even with all of this that you're working on, all of these additional features and everything like that, you still are keeping that core product kind of front and center and making sure that you're continuing to improve that, which it's already really like it saves me on a regular basis. So I don't even have any complaints, and I'm excited to see what comes next with it. Thinking back through some of the things that you just mentioned, just from another person who has used these features, certainly with the dental records, like you said, it can be hard for a technician to follow along with what you're saying tooth by tooth. It's not really fun to grab your pen and wipe schmoo all over your record. And then if you do that, usually it doesn't scan in beautifully. So you may have to go back and like type it back in. So absolutely, I love the dental records that you can just dictate it right there. And then it kind of frees somebody up where, maybe you don't have somebody to monitor and somebody to be on the computer typing the record. Well, now they can continue to monitor and you can still have your record and have it accurate, which of course, like has major legal implications and things like that. It really protects us in the long run. And certainly, oh my goodness, yeah, client summaries, because like you mentioned, those internal medicine cases where, you have to sit down and write this thing, but I don't know if you're like me, I will procrastinate it so long because just the idea of trying to wade back through everything we just talked about and summarize it in a client-friendly way is so overwhelming with everything else we have going on during the day. And certainly like the core soap, like I said, I've seen all of the improvements since the initial product, and I think it's fantastic. So Ryan, kind of back over to you here. We've kind of alluded to the fact that it's been a big year and recently had this massive investment into Scribenote. So tell us more about that. And like you mentioned before, a very, very lean, very scrappy in the beginning. So how is this going to affect Scribenote in the future? And I guess, along the same lines, how do you feel like kind of running the business in a more lean way on cash flow alone for so long is going to really work in your favor now that resources are so expanded?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just one note that I'd add to all the things that Katie talked about in terms of things that we've added. One of the biggest challenges is making sure that when you start expanding the feature set, that you don't create a convoluted mess. I think all of us have used software at some point in our career that you could probably tell that the developer started with some really good intentions, and a year down the line, there's a billion different features that you don't even know how to use. And so I think one of the core challenges, especially when you have a really small team, is to make sure that as expanded features come through the pipeline, that they keep the same essence of the product. And so our core goal with Scribenote has always been, Katie has wanted to be a vet since she was 5 years old. It was not to be interacting with the clunky computer systems. And so our core goal has always been that when we design a product, you should be able to get it in just a few minutes, without having to read through a dense manual. And so I think just one like last thing to highlight on that point is all the features that Katie just talked about. These were layered into our product in sort of an extremely intuitive way, such that the next thing is only just a click away. It's not a whole new thing that you have to learn. And so on that note, the next things are are really, really starting to pile up in terms of our internal development efforts. So I think that is probably one of the most immediate things that I've observed with the company over the past few months of raising, a seed round, is our throughput has just, maybe 10x in the span of a couple months. And that's incredibly exciting. So I'll get into that a little bit. So essentially with the fundraising, we're actually really hesitant on raising money. One of the things that we've always wanted to do was make sure that Scribenote was around for the really long term. I was just at that forum. A number of people from our team was there, and Katie and I gave a presentation on what the long-term aspirations of Scribenote are. Maybe I'll include this as a little teaser for anybody who wants to go watch that talk, because it's posted on YouTube. You can find it on our Scribenote social pages. But when we talk long term, we talk like really long term, not 2026. What's our plan? Of course, we have plans to get to 2026, but we want to make sure that we're around in 2056. And so one of the things that gets challenging when you raise money really early on in a company's life cycle is you don't have enough progress to maintain meaningful ownership and meaningful control of the company's direction. In some cases, you can get to the point where if you started raising money right at the gate and you get to our stage, founders maybe are not in control, and it can kind of create some short-term conundrums. And so I think one of the most important things for us always, we were never against, of course, we started with some external capital, but we just wanted to make sure that we ran the business to be a business. I think a lot of startups miss this. They turn into, relying on funding in order to execute and operate. And that's a really tough position to be in. Whereas if you build the business to be a business, then your financial metrics and your progress without any external capital starts to allow you to always have that optionality. And so Scribenote's first couple of years of HQ being in our parents' basement, not paying ourselves a salary for years, iterating. And when we did go and hire, we scaled up extremely slowly, especially in contrast to our growth. I mean, this time last year, we were really hitting that sort of exponential growth curve, and yet we were only really adding one extra person to our team every few weeks. And so what all of that did was it put Scribenote in a position to, number one, learn how to operate a real business depending on real cash flow. Number two, it forced us to operate under extreme constraint. And when you're operating under extreme constraint, it brings a lot of clarity to the things that you do. You don't have the optionality to go do 20 things. You really only have the optionality to do one thing, or maybe two. And so in doing that, it's like this amazing forcing function to focus on the most important thing. And then number three, it enabled us to keep growing the business such that when we were in a really strong position, we could take on a substantial amount of capital while still maintaining our position in the driver's seat for that long-term orientation. We weren't actually planning to raise as much money as we did. The plan was, I wrote this like 14-page memo at the start of April or something like that as we started to, it was an exercise in, we're really constrained. Things are heating up in this market. What is the right amount of money and why should we do it? And essentially in that memo, we decided that 500K was probably going to be the right number. And then we went to market, we started talking to investors, and we realized that we're in a much stronger position. And, one thing led to another. And we ended up raising an extremely, I think, almost singular in veterinary technology startups fundraising round, but led by some of the best investors in the world. So Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, these were some of the early investors in like world-renowned companies like Facebook and Instagram, Instacart. So they came in. They're able to bring a whole lot more firepower. We were able to maintain really strong alignment internally with the funds that we're bringing on and what it would do for us as a company, and then most importantly, what it would do for our customers. And so now, one of the really crazy things is if you're operating under extreme constraint and then the constraints start to lift, you're not all of a sudden unconstrained. It's not like we can just do 100 things now, but you now know where to apply the resources really intentionally such that the things that were slowing you down before get solved very quickly. And so over the past 4 months, I mean, most of that has gone into the engineering front. A lot of it has gone into, expanding the team in across the board. So adding more people to our customer delight team, bringing on some executives so that our founding team, what happens to a lot of startups, you get pulled into a billion different directions as the company starts to scale up, and you go from being a product person to a manager of a lot of little things like HR and finance and all this. And while that's all extremely healthy, it makes it hard to get back to that core thing that we love, which is follow Katie around and build that next thing that's going to save her 10 minutes. And so, I'll stop myself before I go on too long here, but essentially for a while, it felt like we were trying to skate on gravel. And now it's starting to feel like we're skating on ice. And what that's going to manifest as for our customers is a Scribenote that if you thought the past year was impressive, stick around for the next couple months because it's going to get pretty crazy.
You said so many just things that I want to expand on there, but one place that my brain went where you said it feels like we've been skating on gravel and now we're skating on ice. I'm like, I can't relate to that at all. Here in Florida, we skate on concrete, and asphalt. That's not true. There are skating rinks in Florida, but as you can imagine, they are all indoors. But I'm so sorry that that's where my brain went with all of the incredibly impressive things that you just said. And I think you make a really good point, both in terms of being excited about Scribenote because you have had to really, like you said, run it as a business. You have had to keep the product front and center because that's where the cash flow is going to come from. And so now you are very habituated to doing that and say, okay, this is how we run. But like you said, the headaches go away much more quickly. And I think that really speaks to, just to veterinarians in general who, maybe in business positions, whether it's practice ownership or medical director or something along those lines, it kind of a good lesson to learn and just really speaks to like the reliability of seen out of Scribenote. And like I said before, I love Scribenote because I use it regularly. So I know for me personally, I'm really excited to see, where everything goes next. And really congratulations, because I'm so glad that in doing this, that these world-renowned investors saw where all of this can go. And when you said, not just for 2026, and my head went, oh yeah, in 2036 as well. And you said, no, 2056. And I think that's just everything you talked about there seems like such a healthy way to approach the future and grow a product that is very, very practical, very usable. And like you said, will save us 10 minutes when we open it, because 10 minutes is a lot of time in the day of a veterinarian.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for your kind words.
It helps me on a regular basis, and so I'm happy to share all of that. Although I did have a funny experience the other day where it wasn't a multi-pet room, it was a single pet room, but there was another pet along for moral support, and the pet we were seeing was really, kind of shy, and the other one was not at all, and the other one was like a little chunky, because while the other one was like, I don't know if I want that treat, I'll think about it, the one that was along for moral support was like, oh yes, please give me all the treats and all of this. So mom was kind of joking around about how like the moral support friend was a little on the round side. And so when I got my transcription back at the end, it was, also suggested perhaps we're a little overconditioned and need some weight loss. And I'm like, oh no, that was the other pet.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges of multi-pet. In principle, I think we should be able to make things work pretty well, over time. But one of the ways to think about like what happens with a multi-pet appointment that needs to get processed is like if you just read the transcript, it would be pretty confusing, even as somebody
Right,
listening in, even as a human, a lot of the time, because we're in there with a blindfold, essentially. We're
right.
just capturing audio. We can't really see what's going on. So yeah, we'll get there.
Sure.
It'll get better for sure.
Oh, and in reality, in order to make the record accurate, I think I had to erase like two sentences out of the whole thing, and the rest of it was 100% usable. So it came through just fine. It just made me laugh where all the comments about the treats ended up in there. Uh,
For sure.
well, thinking about this interaction I had the other day, and I've not had any issue going into exam rooms and talking to clients and saying, hey, do you mind if I hit record on the Scribe software here so that I can get an accurate medical note? But certainly it would make sense that there could be concerns around, privacy and HIPAA compliance, even though, that's, we're not really HIPAA compliant in the veterinary industry. So we talked a little bit about data security the last time we spoke, but can we circle back around to that and just what would you say to people who do have privacy concerns when we're talking about making these recordings on our personal devices?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I think a good place to start would be Katie, in scenarios where maybe your client hasn't consented to being recorded. Do you want to maybe just speak for a minute here on what you do in those scenarios?
Sure. So I think I can count on one hand how many times, actually, it was only, I think, two times, and I have been using Scribenote from the beginning. So two times in the entirety of me using the app, I've had someone say, "Oh, I'm not really comfortable with that." And so what I typically do in those cases, and what I've told people that is a good idea to do, is just once you're done, like step out of the room, do a quick summary of your history, your exam findings, your assessment, and your plan. And even if it's less than 3 minutes, you'll still get a fully formatted SOAP. And that's much faster than going to dictate that. It's much faster than, typing it. And so, if you've accidentally not saved a recording or forgot to hit record, all those things that happen when you're in a rush or you're busy, it's super easy to just step out and do that little quick recording and get a full medical record. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I would also say that for anybody who does like house call or something like that and are chit-chatting for 2 hours because you're, I don't know, getting a tour of the owner's plants outside or something like that, which I've done on more than one occasion. Yeah, I will get in my car and do, like you said, like that 3-minute summary and then be able to use like draggy droppy and pull it in there later.
For sure. That isn't the complete answer, I think, to the whole question. So certainly, what I was trying to highlight there was that even in a scenario where your client doesn't consent, which is pretty rare, Scribenote works remarkably well just based on the summaries that you can step out of the room and do. But that doesn't get around the fact that Scribenote as an organization needs to take privacy and security extremely seriously. And this is something that, as a company, even from the earliest days, we've put a ton of time and energy and money and engineering effort into getting right. And so right now, I think Scribenote is going to be one of the first veterinary, not the first, there's a handful, but there's not many veterinary technology software companies that are SOC 2 compliant. So Scribenote is starting our SOC 2 audit in November. This is extremely sort of onerous and audited. This is not some sort of self-claimed thing that we say we're SOC 2 compliant, so trust us. It's like there's a body that requires actual audits to come in and verify that all the things we say we do with your data, all the ways we try to protect it, all the ways we try to make sure that we're maximally available, from a services perspective, that you can always log on to Scribenote and make sure the stuff you need is there. A SOC 2 audit essentially is external firm making sure that those are the things that we actually do. Because a lot of companies, I think every company claims that they care a whole lot about security. And fair enough, they should claim that. But I think it's more important to go a big step further and prove it. So that's what we're trying to do. We're spending a lot of time on this. We have a fractional chief information security officer advising us on this. This is somebody who used to run large healthcare organizations and, has really helped quite a lot. And this is just the start of our security posture. So we're doing our SOC 2 Type 1 audit. This is sort of a point in time in November. And we'll be doing in 2025, early 2025, we'll be starting our SOC 2 Type 2 audit. Which is like for 6 months, people monitor to make sure all the things we say are actually all the things we do. And then this has to happen, I believe, every year. So that's just one thing. Obviously, just from a privacy perspective, when you're talking to your clients, our security posture isn't all that matters. It's really important to get consent when you're asking for recordings, no matter how strong our security posture is, or any of these things. What really matters from the sort of privacy perspective when you're recording with a client is to make sure that they're consenting. And you can do that sort of escalating layers. So you can do that by a simple question, to your point. You can do that with notices. So up in the clinic, kind of like you see in a lot of different stores, malls, hospitals, you are being recorded. You're on camera, smile. That's kind of like providing a notice. And then there's the step up and actually probably the highest level of ensuring that there's consent to being recorded is written policies that you can have your clients sign. Just like they maybe sign other practice policies when they get onboarded to be a client, they could sign a policy. We have templates for all of these. Our lawyer told me I have to say they're templates. They're not legal advice every time. So we have templates for these sorts of things. Of course, with anything privacy and security related, please do trust your counsel, and then, please do make sure you're achieving consent on all these things. But I think hopefully this answer speaks to some of the things we can do to sort of increase the privacy and security posture. And then there's the downstream things, which is, all that said, you maybe don't want your records sitting around on Scribenote, and so you can always delete them afterwards. One of the things that we've just enabled for one of our biggest customers, and I think we'll be enabling for all users soon, is it'd be kind of annoying if every time you use Scribenote you went and had to go to the bottom and click delete on that record, take a lot of extra time. We're a company that aspires to save you as much time as we possibly can. And so one of the things you'll see us come up with is automatic deletion policies. So, a little toggle that says every 30 days, delete all my old records because I don't want them hanging around on our systems. So yeah, these are just a few of the things. We're also happy to answer any questions on this for anybody in the audience that's listening that, feel free to ask. We're here to help on these fronts.
Sure. And I think it's important, and also maybe would help in some of those conversations in the exam room if we did have somebody who was uncomfortable and didn't want to be recorded, to say, if they said, oh, well, I don't want to be on your personal phone there, to say, okay, well, the software has these security features and I can delete it immediately after, or, it'll automatically delete from my phone after a certain period of time. It might help address some of those rare cases where a client may say, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I love the idea of having it as just part of a clinic policy. That seems like it would save a lot of that conversation. And the other thing I've noticed is it seems like people are becoming more and more familiar with scribe softwares, especially as we've seen AI really take off. So there's a lot of just kind of, people aren't surprised when I say, hey, can I record this conversation and get a note at the end, because a lot of people are using that in their jobs in various capacities.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've talked about what a big year it has been for Scribenote, and like you said, stay tuned. So, kind of talking about the future, we've already talked about this a little bit, but do you guys want to expand a little bit on what you're picturing in the future for Scribenote?
Yeah, I think I gotta be careful on my timelines here because I tend towards optimism.
And you don't even have to give a timeline. You can say, this is, I'm expecting this relatively soon, and if it all goes well, you don't have to be specific at all.
Yeah, for sure. I think tending towards optimism is a good thing because we're gonna push like crazy to get these things through on these timelines. But on some of the things that are coming, there are a whole host of features that we talked about. You'll see these just come every month. Just at the end of every month, we send out a customer update email. So the things that Katie was talking about earlier in the conversation, you'll see a lot of updates. Actually, this month, some of the things that Katie was just talking about, you'll see those live by November 1st. Now, some of the later term things, they'll take some time when it comes to being like extremely personalized. My sincere hope and goal is that if we projected ourselves forward to a year from now, then you using Scribenote should feel indistinguishable from how you would have written your notes yourself. I think that's a really important goal to strive towards. It's not like, to date we've kind of been an AI scribe, right? And that's a good thing. That's a good end in and of itself. But an AI scribe still presents all these layers of frustration if you don't want your records to look like our AI scribe would have written your records. You maybe want them to look like how you've been writing your records for the past several years, or how you've been doing your templates for the past several years. One of the sort of keen focuses on the AI front this time next year, I really hope that in using Scribenote, it feels again like that magic moment of like, wow, Scribenote just, beyond getting medical records, it gets me too. So I think that's a really important one. And then, the whole host of product features that I think are really quite exciting. The infrastructure layer is also getting wicked good. So we're overhauling our mobile apps right now. Our mobile apps are pretty good right now, but I think within 3 months or so, it's going to be really difficult to make anything go wrong in a mobile app. My goal is like this time next year, we have a demo video of us like blowing up recording, like actually blowing up, have like in a field somewhere, hooked up to a Starlink, a recording going live, and then we blow it up with a stick of dynamite and we show you that the record's still synced. That would be really cool. So we're not there yet. My team might get mad at me when they hear this.
Like, please let me know when that video goes live.
People would talk about it. It would be really cool for sure. It would be fun to film. But so on the infrastructure side, beyond all these features, a lot of sort of silent progress will be made. But then I think, the one thing that we just, did, to jump back to Vet Forum 2024 there, one of the things we just announced is Scribenote's long-term goal has always been, how do we give every minute back to veterinarians from the technology part of their day? How do we eliminate many of those minutes? How do we make it so that Katie gets to spend as much of her day being the vet that she wanted to be her whole life? And so that's we've been able to accomplish that for many thousands of people, and that's been fantastic. But one of the things that we still hear all the time is that maybe we'd be able to help more people if we could enable a little bit more democratic access to Scribenote. And so one of the things that we are pushing extremely hard towards is a version of Scribenote will be available to everybody in the public for $0. We should have this done by January. It won't come with all the bells and whistles, some of the things we've been talking about, but it should eliminate cost as a barrier to getting home on time for anybody who wants to use our services. So this is something that we're extremely excited about bringing to market as well. So it's not really a feature, but it is a sort of increasing access.
I love that. I think that's huge. And it really speaks to kind of that dedication to the mission to really help veterinarians and help the veterinary professionals and make the profession, just that much more enjoyable. Like I said, for all of us who have wanted to be in this profession since we were very young, but have come across the very real time constraints that come with paperwork. I remember at one point saying, yeah, it sounds like, oh, just look at this pet, but for every just look at this pet, it's 15 minutes of paperwork or more that I have to do. So to be able to eliminate that really, then maybe we can just, let me look at this real quick. Let me answer this question real quick because it's not 15 minutes of paperwork every time. And to be able to make that accessible to everyone, that's a big deal.
Yeah, thank you. We're pretty excited about it too.
Absolutely. Well, I want to be conscious of time here and respect your time because I really appreciate both of you coming on the podcast. But just to wrap up here, there's a lot here to be proud of. You've done a lot in the last year. It sounds like there's lots of super exciting developments to come. What are you the most proud of to this point?
I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is internally, since the earliest days, we've anytime somebody said something nice about what our product has done for their life, we've taken a screenshot of that and stored it internally. We actually have a Slack channel for this internally called Wall of Love. And so every time somebody tells us about the fact that now they're able to have a lunch break or now they're able to get home on time, that their mental load during the day is much better. We've been tracking those kind of comments, and it's definitely a nice dopamine hit for sure. It makes us feel real good. It helps us power through, the long hours of building a company. But one of the things I think I'm most proud of is that Wall of Love this time last year. It's kind of a speck. It was like a little dot compared to what it is today. And what I'm beyond excited for is that if we draw this trend line out, then this year's is going to be dwarfed by next year's Wall of Love. And I think this is like one of the most important metrics that we sort of, track internally, is like, how big can we expand the Wall of Love? If we can do that, then we're doing a really good thing. And then I think the second part on that is, it's in order for people on our team to create the most exciting things, they need to feel what we're doing, right? I think the future of what we can do with our technology is incredibly exciting, but if they don't feel that the technology actually makes a difference in the people's lives who's using it, then what's the point, right? And so growing that Wall of Love has helped our team start to obsess about the right details in what we achieve with our products, what we seek to hear when we release something. If it's good, we should be hearing these sorts of things. And that's a really hard thing to share culturally as the team grows from 2 to 7 to 20 people. You need to have that sort of common tie that gets everybody showing up to work extremely excited about the future that we get to build. And so I think that overarching theme that we had this Wall of Love, and now people are extremely excited about it, and people want to see a world where that Wall of Love is 10, 100, 1,000 times bigger than it is today. That's a proud moment because it doesn't come for free. It comes with a lot of talking about the things that matter. And it's just awesome to walk into work every day and work with people that care about that future.
What I would say I'm most proud of is everything. We built this company from the ground up, and we just hit 2 million notes completed with our software, which is so many hours saved for our profession. And like we've talked about, it is quite a burden to have that paperwork on top of such a busy day. And just knowing that we've, really helped everybody that has used our product just take their life back, like have more of their time and really just start to enjoy the profession again, of practicing medicine again. I cannot even tell you how like profound that is for me, especially to talk to vets like at conferences or even the veterinarians that I work with. A few are closer to retirement age, have told me like I'm going to stay and practice longer because I can actually practice medicine and I'm not just worried about my documentation. And so that is really the biggest thing for me. And then also that we take so much from what people tell us. So we want to make the product the best, and the fact that there's so many different people in this profession and everybody has their own kind of what they do. We want to continue to make the product so good, and take the direct feedback from our veterinarian customers and make Scribenote the best that it can be. And I think I'm just really proud of the whole team and the fact that we've really kind of led this charge, and we will continue to do so.
This is why I get so excited to talk to you guys, from our very first conversation where, Ryan, I think it was pretty much like just you and Alina the first time we met, and like the first conversation we had, and where everything has gone. And it really sounds like a lot of the reason, behind this success is that the motivation is coming from the right place, that you're running this business that is successful because everybody is focused on this end goal of making life better for veterinary professionals, which ultimately benefits the pets in the end and the pet owners, and everybody wins in that regard. And I could truly just sit here and chat with you all afternoon. But like I said, to be conscious of everybody's time, I just want to thank both of you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on the show and sharing updates on Scribenote. And I hope we can have this conversation again next year and hear about all the updates and everything that has been able to come out of this new stage of development.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cassie. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for your time.
We really appreciate it. I can't tell you how exciting it is to be able to talk to you again, and we plan on doing it every year for the next number of years, so just block off your calendar.
Perfect.
Till
Will
2056.
Till 2056. And one of those years I'm gonna block it off, and I will go figure out about this skating on ice thing. I say that I'm from the Midwest. I've skated on ice before, but I also fell and hurt my knee really bad, so I'm a little scared.
Yeah, fair enough. Sounds good. Thank you.
Ryan, Katie, always a pleasure to work with you. Thank you so much for being willing to sit down and talk to me again. I'm so excited for everything that's happened with Scribenote up to this point, and I can't wait to see where it's going in the future. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you for joining us. Please leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps more veterinary professionals like you discover our show. You can also explore more episodes by checking out the Vetfolio website or listen wherever you get your podcasts. We're always eager to hear your thoughts and ideas for the future. Feel free to reach out to me at dvm@vetfolio.com, connect on Facebook at Dr. Cassie DVM, or follow me on Instagram at dr.cassie, CASSI.dvm. And remember, if one animal is better off because of you today, it's a great day.